You held me in your arms and wiped away my tears. Not even in a million years can I ever repay you for what you've done for me. You were there when I felt that there was no place for me. You were there to show me how to truly believe in the miracle of creation, in the good and the bad. Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad.
Bismillah wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Nadir bin Nasif, founder of OutstandingMuslimParents.com and host here at Huda TV for Outstanding Parents. And this is where we encourage parents to raise above being average and shoot for outstanding, inshallah ta'ala. Well, today's episode, we're going to be dealing with something that is very important and that really gets to our core as individuals. That is dealing with building beliefs. So follow me along on this story. Now, two women, both approaching 70 years of age. One woman decides her body's broken down after 7 decades and she kind of has to give into it and just knows she has to start selling her affairs. The other woman decides, 70 years old would be great to start learning about mountain climbing. All right. And she actually dedicates herself for the next 25 plus years to scaling different mountains, even reaching some of the highest peaks in the world, including Mount Fiji. When she was in her 90s, she died at 101. All right, she was 101 years old, she passed. And she was affectionately known as Grandma Whitney. Now, picture this. Dark brown skinned woman, skin like leather, missing a tooth in the front, dressed in baggy clothes sometimes, having to hide in wagons and undercovers and trying to look like a man or something like that. Picture that. Talks to her husband, say, we have to go. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to be part of this type of system anymore. Husband says, I don't believe you. It's too much. He doesn't go. All right. And then she also talks to her two brothers. Two brothers go with her as well. They wanted to escape, but they got scared. They came back. Now, this short, brown, dark-skinned woman missing this tooth, she also packed a pistol. So she was carrying heat. She had her gun with her, right? Well, what she was doing was participating in something and leading people to freedom because she was participating in the Underground Railroad. The woman I'm talking about is Harriet Tubman. Now, with this lady in this intricate network called the Underground Railroad, she was interviewed a number of times. And some of the accounts say she freed over 300 slaves and some say well over 100. But I think it's telling what she said next. When she was asked, how many slaves, you individually freed more slaves really than anyone else. Harriet Tubman looked and responded. She said, I would have freed more than double that had they only known they were slaves. Mind you, this is a woman that talked to her husband that was a slave, said, we're going to escape. We're going north toward freedom. He didn't want any parts of it. Her brothers went with her, then they went back. Short, brown-skinned woman, face like leather, missing a tooth. SubhanAllah, something else. Now, 1767, 17-year-old boy was kidnapped from the Gambia. Had become a man, just finished his rites of passage. What happened? Well, he was stolen and enslaved in Maryland, in Annapolis, Maryland to be exact. But there were some seeds that were planted in this man. He came from a lineage of La ilaha illallah. He came from the Mandinka tribe. Well, many of you know who I'm talking about, or you should. If you don't know, his name is Kunta Kinte. Many people know about him because his descendant, some of his descendants, carried on the story that was etched into him. It was known that he would write in Arabic. He would write the Quran all throughout where he was at. Okay, he would write it in the dirt, in the sand. He would write it where he would not get caught. He didn't eat khanzir. He didn't eat any pork. So he put into his children after he got married, even when he got married. I remember when I was studying Islam and I read the book, Roots. And there's also a movie that is based on the book, which of course comes right from Kunta Kinte or Alex Haley, who was his descendant. But I remember him offering salah, and the fiddler came in, and fiddler was trying to give him some pig and stuff like that, and you know, he knocked it out. He responded to him, you know, I'm not one of those, I'm not one of them individuals, I'm a Muslim. And fiddler said, oh, you one of those non-pork eating such and such. Okay, this happened in 1767, but there were some seeds planted in this Muslim man. And what did he do? Kept his deen. When he got married to his only option, the Christian slave, he said, no, I'm not going to be a Christian man. He stayed on his deen. And then he taught his children the importance of his history, his family's history, and their deen as well. So well over about 200 years later, we come and we have the story that has passed and survived 200 years through slavery, through the separation of family, through this institution that was totally legal in the United States and throughout a lot of the world. From this stolen African Muslim. Alhamdulillah. Now, what is it that allowed these people to triumph in these different trying situations? I mean, imagine 7 years old and you start mountain climbing. Imagine you freeing slaves and you were a young black woman considered a slave. You were stolen from your land at 17 and enslaved on an entirely different continent. What is it? Well, the answer is their belief system, the systems that they have for their beliefs, the meanings they attach to it, caused them to be able to triumph over many different things. So today, well, alhamdulillah, again, as I encourage always, try to take notes, take some good information. And of course, at the end of the show, we'll send you to where you can get some more details. But try to take notes and pay close attention, because this goes to the core of where we are as parents and in the formation stages of our children, who are constantly developing and changing and growing into different beliefs as they grow. So what happened? Think about it. We have a number of stories in Islam. In Surah Al-Yusuf, we hear about Yusuf, and the Prophet ﷺ talked about if he was to stay in prison for the time that Yusuf did, he would have accepted the offer. The offer was accepting freedom. When Yusuf was given the opportunity, just go ahead and go free. And he had a condition: I'll go free if you expose my innocence and that I was not guilty of what you locked me up for. Other words, I'm going right back here. My reputation, my everything, alhamdulillah, that has to be cleared up first. Well, it didn't happen. He went back to jail, went right back to prison. Well, alhamdulillah, and the Prophet ﷺ said he would have taken that deal. Well, alhamdulillah. All right. Now, what type of belief system did they have to have in order to get that done? And alhamdulillah, we know it's la ilaha illallah. We know this. However, that is heavier than anything else on the planet, is that shahada. So how does that affect us in our belief? The great part is, well, we already have a belief system designed for us. We already have that comes already packaged and delivered with Islam. Alhamdulillah. So we don't necessarily have to think of what's good and what's not good, because Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam have already told us. But we have to be able to transfer that information, those beliefs, those ideas, into this next generation. All right? Of course, that would mean we'd have it. For example, there's 5 categories for every action. And we know this, and I'm not here to teach on this. However, there's 5 categories for every single action, right? There's fard, or wajib, that which is mandatory. Or if you don't do it, there's sin. There's mandub, mustahab, or what's recommended. You do it, you get extra barakah. You don't do it, there's no sin. There's mubah. It's permissible. Do it or not do it really doesn't hold any weight either or. There's makruh, which is disliked and best to stay away from. Then, of course, there's haram, which is prohibited and sinful. So there's 5 categories for every action. So when we want to do something, all we have to do is reference the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. What is the hukum? What is the ruling here? Challenge is, many of us, we don't really know. Or we're not giving it to our children in a manner that they can see it and understand the wisdom behind it, as opposed to it just being a set of rules and regulations. Saying, no, 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 no. Some of you may know my friend Ali, or call him Baba Ali. And he has numerous videos on YouTube and stuff like that. But he has one video called The Haram Police. And he talks about, everything is haram, 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 haram. Well, the thing is, we have to know where the categories are and where they fall. Because sometimes our children can see everything is haram, 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 haram. When we know that, alhamdulillah, in our sharia, that there's more things that are allowed than disallowed. Well, alhamdulillah. and it's for the wisdom. We know that the believer in this life here, the believer is in prison, but in the akhirah is Jannah. But the kafir, the one who does not believe in this deen, they had a paradise now, because in the akhirah, it's going to be a prison. So we have to have that balance. Now, let's talk about how we go and what we do when it comes to our beliefs. Well, one of the things that we do is we generalize. We generalize, which is good. For example, if I'm talking about opening a doorknob, I need to know that, hey, usually when I turn the doorknob and I push it, if it's not locked, it's going to open. When I get in my vehicle, start it up, start driving, if I hit the accelerator, it's going to move forward, hit the brake, it's going to slow down. You know, these generalizations are good. The challenge comes when we use them to more complex areas. If we expect a person to do a certain thing because we say a certain thing. Well, I expected that individual to do this. Well, we can't necessarily generalize, or we shouldn't generalize when it comes to other people's behavior. So if we tell our child, you know, you have to get up at such and such a time for suhoor, okay, that's a rule. That's something that we put there. And they should do that. All right, they should obey their parents. We have to be the ones encouraging and planting those seeds, right? But we shouldn't generalize because I told them that they're going to do it. They may fall asleep. We know the pin is lifted, right? They may have other excuses and other reasons and other things that occur. But we have to make it as easy as possible for them to succeed and them to be rewarded. So generalizing, again, can be challenging, especially when it deals with a complex situation. Now, here, let's talk about these beliefs. How do we develop beliefs? Well, most of the time, we have no idea how we develop beliefs about things. We just, many times from our environment, someone said something or read it in a book, heard it from somewhere. That's, you know, usually what happens. So we don't know first. Number two, many times our beliefs are based on misinterpretations of the past. Two things can happen, two similar situations can happen with two totally different people, and they have an entirely different perspective on something. That's why, alhamdulillah, we say alhamdulillah when something we perceive as good happens, and when we see something perceived as bad happens. We say alhamdulillah. Because there's no trial for a believer, even the prick of a thorn, that he does not receive barakah. Right? So the misinterpretation of the past could form a belief. I was hurt by such and such, therefore they'll hurt me again. Okay? So the third, very quickly, is that many times we forget that our beliefs are but an interpretation of the meaning of something. They're just how we perceive it to be. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about really what a belief is as soon as we come back from break. So, alhamdulillah, stick with us, and I'll see you right after the break, inshallah. Ma'as-salama.
Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad. Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back. All right. Now let's talk about this very important thing called a belief, because we're talking about developing business or belief systems, right? All right. So we want to treat it like a business. So if we could actually open something up and actually look at it or re-engineer it, that's what we're going to do. So what is a belief? Now, in my definition, say a belief is a feeling of certainty. It is just a feeling of certainty. So for example, if you believe you're intelligent, say, you know, I'm intelligent. Why do I believe I'm intelligent? Well, picture it like this. I want you to imagine with me, if you will, a table. Of course, you have a tabletop, and let's put 4 legs on the table. So you're imagining a table with 4 legs, right? Well, if someone tells my child, hey, you're intelligent, and the child says, you know, I am, that's kind of an idea. It hasn't become a belief yet. There's still some doubt. They really need some more references. So if someone tells me I'm intelligent, you would, you know, to find out if this is a belief, you would ask, well, how do you know? Well, my mother told me I was intelligent. I took a test and I passed it. Or I learned how to do this and I still remember it. I taught someone else that. You know, these help put the legs or the pillars around this table. So keep that in mind. As you're building a belief in a child, if you want your child to believe they're smart or they're beautiful, you tell them they are. That plants the seed of that idea. Then you nurture the seed with compliments. You say, well, alhamdulillah, yes, you're intelligent. Look how you perform wudu. You performed it well. You went up to your elbow and got your elbow. Look how you offer salat. You were praying in sujood to your Lord. Well, alhamdulillah. That is intelligent. There are many people that are ignorant. They don't even know their Lord, know how to take care of themselves in their bathrooms. So these different references helps build them up. So we must be cognizant of it, because it's our responsibility as parents to help build those beliefs that boost their self-esteem and boost their confidence and boost that to the point where they recognize Allah Ta'ala and they're grateful for it. So it goes from an idea, really is that seed, like, oh, well, But when you believe something, again, it's that feeling of certainty. It's where you have that competence. And that's our responsibility, again, not only for our children, but for ourselves as well. So as being an outstanding Muslim parent, you would likely be outstanding or on your way before you even get there. There's different measurements and different tools and strategies and stuff that we'll use, but it starts with your belief. Because that belief system is what changes and separates you from the average. And like I say, who wants to be average? Which is the bottom of the top or the top of the bottom. Okay? Now, I want to talk about conversions, or when people call converts or reverts or whatever they like to call, basically people who have accepted Islam, and the power that comes with the sweetness of Iman. We know of the Hadith of Prophet ﷺ, who talks about whoever possesses these three qualities, these three things, has the sweetness of Iman. The one to whom Allah and His Messenger are more beloved than anything else, the one who loves only for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, and the one who hates to go back to disbelief after Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has opened his eyes and saved him from it, as he hates to be thrown to the fire. So the one who hates to convert to disbelief after Allah has rescued him from it, and he hates to, as he hates to be thrown into the fire. So that's one of the sweetnesses of Iman. This is very important, because Ahlul Kitab, for example, I told you, people that come from Ahlul Kitab or any Jews or Christians who accept Islam, they get a double reward. Well, alhamdulillah, get a double reward. It's not easy to change that going in the mind and the heart and separate from the family. But we know the same one that created these people that we're related to is the same one that created us, and we have to answer to. And we do not worship the people that we come from, or we should not worship the people that we come from. We as Muslims, of course, don't. But then there are those who would rather follow the religion of their fathers and their ancestors than to follow the truth of Islam. So let's talk about some conversions. Look at those who saw changing their beliefs as too painful. They thought the pain from getting away from their idols, the pain of being a mushrik, was easier than submitting to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. For example, we can look at Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, right? And even the one that protected the Prophet ﷺ while he was living, Abu Talib. And it said he will be in a part of the hellfire considered, I can't even say the word easiest is not a good word. All right, but one of the lower levels of the hellfire, where he'll have boots of fire on, but the heat will be so much it's sufficient to boil his brains. And on his deathbed, the Prophet ﷺ was encouraging him to take Shahada, encouraging him to say the truth. What did he say? The religion of my fathers, no, I can't do it. Died a disbeliever, died a kafir. The pain he thought of accepting this deen al-haq was worse for him. That's what he thought. We know differently. We know the pleasure of accepting deen al-haq is better than anything else. That dying upon this deen is better than anything else. That's a striking contrast to anything that I was taught in Jahiliyyah. You were taught, to cling to life, to try to live it longer. If somebody dies, they die too soon. You come to Islam, no one dies too soon. They die on time, every time. Well, alhamdulillah. Now, you have people like Umar bin al-Khattab, who when he was a kafir, he was a good kafir. Not good as meaning good character, but meaning he was a good disbeliever. He disbelieved at his best. He was a savage at his best, burying baby girls alive and taking others to get rid of their shame in daughters. What happened with his conversion? Drastic change. Now from doing something and being so pathetic and so low to being raised high, to now willing to die for this deen, where he would make dua. He would make dua to die shaheed, and his family were like, yeah, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you in Medina. We're secure. We have peace and everything here. What are you talking about? You want to die shaheed? How can that happen? You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you want. He died. He's shaheed. May Allah ta'ala grant him Jannah. So that's Umar bin al-Khattab. Strong conversion. Then you have Salman al-Farsi, who was seeking knowledge and seeking knowledge. He saw and he was just struggling. Changed country, disobeyed his parents, kept moving until he finally found the truth. Alhamdulillah. And you have Khalid bin Walid. He fought against the Muslims. He fought and he thought his ideas and his beliefs were right. He fought for it. He beat Muslims in battles. And then the power of that conversion. Alhamdulillah. The sweetness of Iman. He wanted to die for it and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiple times for shahada. But he was Saifullah. He couldn't down the battlefield. Never lost a battle. But he was the sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ta'ala did not grant him shahada. Even though he was confused by it. He said, you know, I think he said it was over 70 different wounds on his body. And had other people say, you know, I've been seeking shahada, but I can't get it. But that was prohibited for him, as one of his friends. So you see, that was prohibited from you when the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, called you Saifullah. Alhamdulillah. Power of this conversion. To come from the stench and smelliness of kufr and understand the sweetness of Islam. Unfortunately, many Muslims today, they lack it if their family had already been Muslims. So I talk with a lot of Muslims in the West in particular. They may have immigrated to the West, first generation. They have children. Children are born in America. They see the allure. They get pulled many different ways. Well, the children associate being more American than anything else. So when someone says back home, they can't picture what back home is. Back home means on my block at the house, on the south side or north side of this town in the U.S. So it's important for us to recognize that we don't inherit this deen. We have to accept it, to take it, make it become part of us and part of our identity. But for those who know the stench of kufr, as opposed to those who don't, we see those blindly going towards jahil. They go towards kufr, trying to be them or imitate them because of that pull is so alluring. But we must know we have to be proactive. We have to know, what's your belief system? How's it like that? Why is it like that? We want to dig into the core as we talked about, right? So we ask questions. It's funny because when you're asked a question, you can only consciously focus on one thing at a time. So I say, you know, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you give me salams back, and I say, you know, how such and such? Well, you have to answer that before you go on with the conversation. You must answer. Your brain's going to think about it. You have to answer that question before we go on, or it's very rude. It's just how we are. So when a question is asked, you're demanding attention and an answer from your brain, and your brain is going to search for it. Well, alhamdulillah. So how can we be effective if we want to help our children change their beliefs? Well, they can temporarily change their behavior in front of you. If they're not supposed to be doing something and they look around and they see you and you already told them to watch out for that behavior, they'll change their behavior, but that's not necessarily changing their belief. What's going to happen when you're not around? That's the challenge. That's how we know we have successful children on the right path and our gardening has worked. When they do things when we're not around to tell them what to do, but they make the decision based on the filter of Islam. So how do we do it? Well, we have to associate pain. We have to associate, if you don't do this, then here's the result. Here's the belief. Why do we believe that? Because Allah Ta'ala says it. Why do we believe what Allah Ta'ala says? What's the proof? We go deeper and deeper and deeper to intellectually convince, but more importantly, to touch their hearts. Because we must touch their hearts before we ask for a hand or expect anything. Now, there are children. We're looked at as these celebrities and these confidants, and we're their coaches and stuff as well, right? These are three roles we will continue to play throughout their entire life. But with that, we must know how this core belief fits in their belief systems. So if they have a misinterpretation of something, I've heard people say, you know, I went to this Muslim school and I see how things are, and, you know, they fade away. Say, you know, I just need to stay away from it because of the fitna, or I see stuff going to the masjid, I'm going to stay away from it. But we know the Prophet ﷺ talks about shaitan doesn't attack the flock, but it's the sheep that strays from the flock. So we must be cognizant of it, that they're secure in themselves as their belief, and we want to give them as many references as possible. So yes, you're beautiful. How do you know you're beautiful? Allah Ta'ala created you. He loves beauty. Cleanliness is part of your man. You're always clean. Yes, you're beautiful, as you tell your daughters and sons. You hug them and you love them. These are just small tips that make a big difference in building their belief in themselves. And we tie it to Islam every step of the way. Alhamdulillah. So inshallah ta'ala, you got some good stuff. And what I'm going to suggest you do for some different tips and what we talked about in today's episode, make sure you visit the website at outstandingmuslimparents.com/beliefs. So outstandingmuslimparents.com/beliefs. Think about it, go over your notes, and inshallah ta'ala, we will see you in the next episode. Jazakumullahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's Nadir bin Naseeb signing off. Ma'as-salam.
While my world was crumbling down, and you tried your best to shelter me from the coming of the storm, you opened my eyes to see that all hope was not gone. You held me in your arms and wiped away my tears. Not even in a million years can I ever repay you for what you've done for me. You were there when I felt that there was no place for me. You were there to show me how to truly believe in the miracle of creation, in the good